Hey everybody, welcome to the Relentless podcast. I'm your host, as always, Chris Collegia, and I'm here with my buddy Zach. And most people, when I reach out to them to do this podcast, I say, hey, here's some ideas for challenges. Pick one and do it for 40 days. Come on the pod and then come back on and we'll talk about it. I reached out to Zach and he didn't want to do just one. He didn't even want to do just two. He wanted to do, I counted, I believe 22 of them. So you're going through like a full transformation.
That's the hope.
And when you come back, I feel like you're going to levitate. You're going to just be levitating through the door. But let me rattle off the list of challenges that you're going to do for the next 40 days. And we'll talk about them. I don't think we'll have time today to dive into each and every single one of them. But there were a few that piqued my interest that I wanted to get into. So here they are. So in the next 40 days, you are going to do all of these things. 10,000 steps, 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, burn 500 active calories. You're going to run. You're going to log your food daily. You're going to drink 160 fluid ounces of water a day. And then here's where it gets good. You do no social media. You're not going to check your phone 1 hour before and after sleep, with the exception of perhaps a guided meditation, which I like. We're going to meditate. We're going to work through the 12 steps. We're going to get out into nature. Here's the juicy ones that scare the shit out of me. No caffeine. No nicotine. No video games. You're going to call a friend or family member every day. You're going to volunteer weekly. You're going to do cold showers. You're going to try Wim Hof breathing. You're going to sleep for 8 hours, which I did not do last night. I can get into that. And you're going to read a nonfiction book. So count it, whatever you think. We're going to do all those things. But before we get into all that, Zach, you have such an interesting tale to share with the listeners. And I just want to pass the mic over to you. What is it that you've done and what gave you the idea to do it?
Sure. So I started walking across the United States at the end of March. I started at Delaware at the Atlantic Ocean, and I walked basically to New Albany, Indiana, just north of Louisville. My original plan was to get to Colorado and pause there, but instead I paused in Louisville. I didn't move quite as quickly as I thought I would, but I moved every day. I was doing that for a fundraiser for paralysis awareness. I have a friend from the place where I work, the Recovery Project, who's spinal cord injury, paralyzed from the shoulders down. And we're doing a fundraiser for a writing class for paralyzed people, specifically that demographic. He and I took 2 writing classes together, so that kind of like formed the idea. He was a big backpacker too, so obviously his physical limitations prevent him from backpacking, so I'm basically doing this in his spirit.
Dude, that is amazing. The Recovery Project. What is the Recovery Project?
It's a physical therapy clinic.
Okay. So you were working with him as a client?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Cool. And this all came together. And so you said in Delaware. And how did you find the trail to walk across the country?
Well, I went to college at the University of Missouri, and the trail runs like right along through Columbia. So the trail I used to run and bike on is part of the American Discovery Trail.
Okay.
And one time I heard these bikers talking about how if you kept going west, it would take you all the way to the Pacific Ocean. So that's kind of like when I originally had the idea of like, I would like to do that someday.
Yeah, that's awesome. And about how many miles per day would you say you averaged?
I tried to do about 20. I don't have the exact number.
Okay.
So the beginning 20 was not doable. My bag was too heavy. I had to shed a lot of shit. So probably, if you netted it out, it'd probably be about like 15 miles a day by the end. Well, I was doing 20 a day by the end, but the average would have probably been about 15.
Okay. Super cool. 15 miles a day, every day. What did you do to pass the time?
It's basically like a 9 to 5.
Okay.
You wake up, and then you probably don't want to take more than an hour to get out of camp. I tented most of the night. Sometimes I did hotels, and then there were people called trail angels who live on or near the trail who will host you.
Huh.
So sometimes, and they give you like a warm bed, shower, meal, laundry. So that's, yeah, you basically hike till about 5, but nothing goes according to plan on a trip like that. So you often are hiking into the night depending on where you are and where you need to be.
Okay. Wow. I'm so inspired by it. And I wonder if you were to ask most people, would you do it? I wonder what the answer would be, because I think if I didn't have the kid, I think that would be, if you have kids, it sounds fantastic. Like, to get away from my son for that long would be awesome. No, I'm just kidding. I would miss him. But anyway, he's 5.5. And I think anyone with like a kid that age, you know, they you love them, but they're a pain in the butt. And sometimes you're just like, get away from me, you psycho. So would you listen to podcasts? Would you listen to music?
Yeah,
Okay.
both.
Yeah.
The issue is, at least half the time you have absolutely no cell signal whatsoever.
Oh.
So you got to download all your stuff.
Okay.
So what ended up happening a lot of the time is I wouldn't download enough the night before or whatever. And usually when you do have cell phone, signal, it's like just a little.
Yeah.
So that downloading can take a second. And then I also like documented a lot, like had a journal and stuff, and social media pages for it. So uploading stuff would take forever.
Yeah.
But what ended up happening with music and podcasts is that I would end up having to listen to the same stuff like over and over and over again,
Okay.
which was actually not that bad,
Yeah.
because I feel like that's sort of like my personality, is to like do something over and over and over again.
Oh yeah, I agree. Unless an artist, I'm down to like 3 musical artists that I actually will seek out their music, and like when they release like a new album, it's like a big deal. But I won't. I will just listen to the new album over and over and over again, and then hopefully the next project's coming out soon from someone else, and then I'll just listen to that. I am the same way, and the most recent one for me, I've had 2. So Eminem, I'm a big Eminem fan, and he released The Death of Slim Shady earlier this year. No, it was over the summer. And yeah, a month straight, that's all I was playing. And then I got hip to a band called the Red Clay Strays. Have you ever heard of the Red Clay Strays?
I've heard of that name, yeah.
Dude, they are awesome. It's like, I've tried telling people about them, and they're like, who do they remind you of? Because they want to know, like, what am I getting myself into? And it's like, if I had to make a comparison, the Red Clay Strays to me are like Elvis meets Chris Stapleton, kind of. So when you're on this walk, you said what are the people called that house you?
Trail angels.
Trail angels. How do you get a hold of them? Do you just like walk right up to their house and say, can you house me for the night? Or do you have to like set it up in advance?
It sort of depends. Are you familiar with the app Gaia?
No.
It's sort of like All Trails on steroids.
Okay. And
so you download the GPX file for the American Discovery Trail, and there's a program called Hiking America. So like all the people who hike this trail, or a lot of them, if you're gonna do this trail, I really recommend Hiking America.
Okay.
Using that with Gaia. It's a file for Gaia. But it logs all the previous hikers, so they'll show you places where they pitch tent, and where trail angels are too, and people who have given permission to put their contact information in there, so you can reach out to them and say, hey, I'm in this area, sunset, I'll be near you, can I stay? Sometimes though, a lot of the time actually, you come across people who live on the trail, because the trail's not like a hike through the woods.
Yeah.
It is that in probably about half the time. You go through national and state parks, but the rest of it is going through like cities and like small towns with historical significance to the country.
Okay.
So like I went through DC. The big ones so far have been DC, Cincinnati, and effectively Louisville.
Okay.
But there will be, I think, about 4 or 5 other major ones, and then a lot of little small towns, and kind of like college-sized towns too. So the point of that is that you as you're walking on the trail, there are houses on the trail. So people will have seen hikers, and most of the time people hear about the trail because they just see somebody walking on the road with a backpack on. They're like, would people think you're homeless if, and a lot of stories on that. But so they'll offer someone to either like pitch their tent on the yard, or they'll say, if you want, you can come in. So,
Okay. Any weird interactions with some of the people that you stayed with?
As far as the trail angels go, a lot of them were fantastic. Almost every single one of them was like the kindest, most warm-hearted, helpful, like over-the-top helpful people.
That's awesome.
Just really, really good. It kind of like restores your faith in humanity.
Nice.
Quite a bit. There was kind of one strange fellow in. I'm not going to say his name just because he's this.
Call him Fred. Fred?
So he lived in Ohio, and I went. So the American.
Well, there's his problem right
there.
There
You go. The American Discovery Trail borrows other trails throughout. So like the Buckeye Trail runs around the perimeter of the state of Ohio, but the American Discovery Trail just uses that southern portion of it. So I went through southern Ohio, and this guy had put a camera up. It went through his property, the trail. So he puts a camera up in the woods, basically, and that is linked to footage in his living room so he can see if someone's coming through. So he comes out, he introduces himself, and he was an interesting guy. He lived he was building like a commune.
Okay.
And all he ate, he had chickens, and all he ate was eggs.
Okay.
And he only drank spring water.
Okay, this guy's just in a constant state of ketosis
with
these eggs. That's like the perfect keto food, and if that's all you're eating,
yeah. But what was interesting about him, extremely progressive individual.
Okay.
In every regard,
except
for when it came to the Amish.
Okay.
Now the Amish, I walked through a lot of Amish country.
Nice.
This guy hated the Amish.
Why?
And so
he's got his reasons.
He's a pot farmer.
Oh, okay.
So and then in
pot like marijuana.
Marijuana.
Oh, sweet.
And
I like this guy.
Yeah. And in the Amish community, I can't remember what it's called, but there's a period, I think, when they turn 16, 17. Of course, I think it's only the boys who get to do this. Oh. They break it to like go out into the world.
Yeah, what is that called? Keep talking. I'm going to find the name of that because it's going to bug me.
Well, because he was the guy who grew pot in the area, he was sort of like their touchstone for the world. So they would come to him. Like my first time there, I walked in, there was like I don't know if I should say it's on a podcast.
Rum Springer.
Okay.
Yeah. No, say it.
So he would have these kids, like teenagers, they had like a kid in his living room, like smoking a doobie.
Nice.
So this kid was in was it Rum Springer, I think. Rum Springer, yeah. Okay. So all these kids would come from the Amish community and then basically tell them like what their experience was, and I think it led to him like really hating the Amish.
Okay.
And he like wouldn't, no matter what I did, he couldn't get off of like, he would start talking about them and I would try to change the subject and he would just like steer it back. That's the only thing I have to say negative about him.
Okay.
He was actually like a pretty good, it was a weird group to hate though, because I feel like most hate groups, the Amish is just not one you would think of.
Yeah.
So it stood out because it was unique.
Yeah.
But progressive in every other sense.
I don't even know what to call that. Like, is Amish a race? Is Amish a religion?
It's a religion.
Oh, so it's like whatever it is. What's the xenophobic? Is that when you're...
I think that's... I don't know. Foreign. Fear of foreigners, yeah.
Okay. Whatever ist against religion is, that guy had that. Interesting. I've always been fascinated by Amish people. I think it started with the movie, I don't know if I have it up here in my wall, but Kingpin, the movie Kingpin. It's a Farrelly Brothers movie. It's about Woody Harrelson, who's a good bowler, but he loses his hand, and then he has to then he befriends this Amish guy who's played by Randy Quaid, and he like kind of becomes his bowling manager. Bill Murray plays the bad guy. It's hilarious. Part of the reason why I wanted, just to be totally open, part of the reason why I wanted to do this podcast is because I feel like with a lot of people in my life, friends, acquaintances, family, I only know people on the surface level. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of have been feeling like that lately. Like some of my best friends that I've known since I'm like 5-6 years old are my best friends. We would, take a bullet for one another, but I don't know anything beneath the surface, or very little beneath the surface. It's all typically the Lions are looking good. Tigers had a crazy season.
It's about the only safe topic right now.
Right,
The
right.
Lions.
The weather, crazy. It's November and it's 60, crazy. So part of the reason that I wanted to do this is to stretch myself and to learn about my friends' lives. And I wouldn't have known all that, had I not taken the time to have you on here, maybe in casual conversation, but yeah, so that's really cool. And then do you plan on going back out after you're in Michigan, going back out and getting to the Pacific Ocean by foot?
Yes.
Wow.
Yep.
That's wild. Do your toenails fall off?
Yes.
They do?
Yeah.
Okay. You're also a trail runner.
Yeah.
Right? I remember from when we, we're still Snapchat friends, but trail running. So like, distance wise, just out of curiosity, what's like the farthest you will go?
Like a race?
Yeah, like a race. It doesn't even have to be trails. I just kind of
Okay.
use trail running as a segue. But when you're running, like what kind of distances are you putting up when you're at your peak running shape?
The furthest I've done was a 50K. It was 32 miles.
Okay.
That was in Traverse City.
Okay.
But that race itself was the longest. The training, as far as the training goes, I think the furthest I had done prior to that was 23.
Okay.
But they recommend that you don't go up towards 30 in the training block.
Okay.
You just do 23, 24, 25s.
Mm-hmm.
And usually those kinds of distances are if you're a beginner, intermediate, those are toward the middle and end of your training block.
Okay.
At least the one I did. Dude,
that brings me to another reason why I started this podcast. I'm looking for people like you. I'm looking for people who, I don't want to name names like we're not doing, but I proposed this idea to a group of friends that I had. And one response that I got, love the guy, I won't say his name, but his only response was, I run marathons. As if that running a marathon somehow negates you from improving your life in any other way or taking on a challenge. Oh. And we heard it here. 32.
Is he an addict?
No, he's not actually. Okay. But yes, it kind of sounds like addict shit right there. But it's just so funny because like, okay, you run a marathon. Let's go do the San Diego one day where we do 100 miles in 24 hours. The one that Goggins did before he ever ran a marathon. He did the San Diego one day. Yeah. And I did it just being kind of facetious. I don't want to do that. But for me, part of opening up and getting to know people is the challenge, because that sounds like something that like, okay, you're sitting in front of me. You did 32 miles. I kind of want to do that, even though I fucking hate running. Like I run maybe once a year. And
a marathon. Didn't you do that last year?
Dude, so after I read Goggins' book, and I just brought up Goggins a second ago, Goggins had this like profound impact on me. I feel like my life is a constant oscillation between Eckhart Tolle teachings of like being super present, shut the mind off, and Goggins, where it's like crank the mind up beyond 100. And yeah, after I read that book, he told in detail his story about running 100 miles with zero training. So I'm like, fuck, if a human can do that, let's go see what I can do. So I hadn't run in years, but it's, I do exercise pretty much every single day like a psycho. It's just running. Yeah. So I did like an 8-miler, and then I did a half marathon, kind of like back to back. Did a half marathon, and then just this past year, it's always January 1st. I'm like, I kind of need an annual reset. I'm going to go for a long run. I won't run for the rest of the year, but I'll go. And when I say run, I mean trot. Like I'm not fast, but I did 15 this past January, and I feel like each year I just kind of dial it up a little more. And for whatever reason, I think I started doing it because A, I hate it. Yeah. And B, it kind of shows you like if you hate something, but you could still push through and do it, I feel like I learned some from it, but also the first couple runs, I think I was just kind of under the David Goggins trance. Like looking back on it, I would like make Snapchat videos about it and be like, I think it was a little ego. I think there's some ego in there. I'm just like, I just ran 12.2 or 13.2, whatever a half marathon is, 13.2, 13.1.
One, yeah.
And I'm just like, no training, and just like, all right. Like, looking back,
I will say doing that without any training is actually, most people are going to like pull a hamstring doing that.
yeah.
Especially without any training whatsoever.
Thanks, man. And it all came down to my hip flexors.
I'm sure
like,
it
by
did.
the end, I couldn't lift my legs. I was just like, man. But I will probably do another big long run, maybe like a 20-miler, January 1st, and then just, like I said, keep bumping it up. But here's where I need to get better. People train for half marathons, as they should, and they'll do like bumper stickers or they'll talk about it. And I wish, and I'm working on it, but I wish I had more of the personality type to like encourage and be like, that's awesome. Like, what's your time? Like, whatever. But I just, like, in my head, I get resentful. I'm like, oh, half marathon, you're training for it? What are you, a pussy? It's just like, I need to get rid of that shit. Like, that's, that kind of thinking is still alive and well within me. And it shows me that I got a lot of room to grow. You know what I mean?
Sure,
like,
we all do.
I get this weird, like, cause we're program, 12 steps, big 12 stepper.
Yep.
And it's a lot about humility, and it's a lot about not judging. And it's a lot about, there's so much depth to the 12 steps, but one of the big mottos is progress, not perfection, and keep coming back. And I'm so glad I have this place to go to keep reminding me that, like, I will forever be an egomaniac with an inferiority complex. And the moment I start, thinking the other way, which is getting in the egomaniac phase, like, I need to shut it down real quick. And I get this like weird, and I've been sober for April 17th, 2013. So 11 and a half years.
Wow.
And I need to stop with the spiritual black belt shit. Like, I'm going through this weird phase in my recovery where I need to be happier for people. Like, when I'm sharing a table with somebody who's like ranting about nothing program related, like, I get all resentful in my head, and I don't know what that has to do with anything, but
I think that's important though.
Yeah.
That friction there's something to that friction in the same way there's something to running or doing something challenging physically. I think that in a sense it's a natural response to improvement. Mm-hmm. And like, think about like how we were before we came into the program with that sort of stuff. Like, I can't speak for you, but I know, like, I never stopped to think about stuff like that.
That's true.
So I do the same thing is what I'm getting at.
Right. It's that burden of like, self-awareness is cool.
Yeah.
Taking a look inside is cool, but I also have this obsessive mind that can just not let up. Like, what am I trying to say? It can just, once the ass kicking machine turns on, it's on in full force. And yeah, sometimes I just need to be easier on myself, Yeah.
Love yourself.
Love yourself.
In a real way, not in like, pop psych kind of a way.
Right.
Which includes the friction.
Yeah.
That's an unfortunate part of self-love that I've had to kind of come to terms with. And I had a lot of time to think.
Yeah.
The last couple of months.
Man, I want you to keep going with that thought, but there's a comedian, I believe it was Mark Normand, who said something about, like, he's in New York City and his AirPods died. And so he had no music or podcast to listen to. And he's like, this whole time I thought I loved music. Turns out I just hate my own thoughts. That's why I was very curious about what you did during the whole time. Cause all that time, it's hard to stay in like a meditative Zen place. Like, my mind would just go, and sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes it's fun and freeing, but sometimes, alone plus thoughts, no good for me.
Yeah.
Did you find any of that?
Yeah. So I want to say that's actually, I'm I'm glad you brought that up because I had an experience. I can't remember what state I was in. It might have been West Virginia. I received a Snapchat from one of my friends who has a son, and I messaged him something about where I was, and I was kind of, and you know, you were sort of talking about having a kid and like how that would influence your ability to do like an adventure of your own choosing, and he kind of responded in a very short way, and I took that as him being, this is just classic alcoholic personality, as him being like jealous of me instead of happy for me.
Yeah.
That was at night. And I literally stewed on that the entire evening. And then I woke up and I was still feeling that way. This is all in my head. None of this is real. Like, he does not think this way.
Yeah.
And then that whole morning, as I started walking again, I lost cell signal. And I had not had, at that point, I had not downloaded music. So I am walking without music, thinking these thoughts. And it ends up being the only thing I'm thinking about. Like, and this is something that I think is important to talk about with people who have a good deal of sobriety, that stuff like this, you know, when you first get sober, they always talk about the pink cloud and like how, because you were fucking your life up so much, every day without the drink is like, it gets better and better. I mean, it's hard, but your life is improving objectively, even if you're having to deal with consequences from what you did in your past. So anyways, I'm walking and I'm stewing about this. And this is like one of my best friends. So like this is an absolutely insane resentment to have.
Yeah.
And fortunately, on my phone, I had recorded a conversation I had with my sponsor, I think like 4 years ago.
Wow.
Where we were going through, have you heard of the ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics?
I know of ACA, never been to a meeting, but it's very similar to Al-Anon for me, where I've like heard about it and be like, I could probably benefit from something like that, but I've never taken the dive. But
it's don't go through that alone either. You work with somebody through that stuff. But so I'm listening to him talk about codependency and because deep down there's part of me too. I want to preface this too for people who have kids and are maybe thinking about the days before when they could kind of go and do whatever they wanted. I don't have kids. I don't have a girlfriend. There are times when I feel the same way about them, like where I'm kind of like thinking I would be happier if I had what they had. You know, you always want what you can't have, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm sidetracking here, but as I'm walking, I'm listening to this recording from my sponsor, and he's talking about this stuff and just like how we tend to search for love through chaos, and it's because it's, you know, in alignment to what we kind of knew growing up, and how we repeat these patterns and stuff. And somehow this linked all of these things together in my mind. I'm in the middle of the woods. I just start crying. Like I'm sobbing,
dude,
completely sobbing. But it was totally freeing.
So you're sitting on this kind of resentment, or at least resentful thoughts.
Oh yeah.
And then you play the conversation you had with your sponsor, and then the tears start to flow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I couldn't even control it. Like it was like something had been released. And so I think to the point you were saying with people using music to not face their thoughts, it made me face them. And I had that experience over and over again in a bunch of different ways on this walk.
Yeah.
Where and it's the same reason you run or you work out or you do something hard intentionally, because I think it like almost lowers whatever resistance you have when you're not in movement, when you're isolating, to kind of emotionally numb or block out those negative thoughts. Yeah. It almost makes you just tired enough to stop fighting, kind of a thing, and to face what's actually there.
Oh man, that's some powerful stuff. I have so many comments, but the one that's sticking out to me, which apparently is the one that I'm supposed to share, the pink cloud stuff. You know, being so new in recovery and everything just feeling so good because you're so excited. I think it's part excitement, part finally I feel better physically, and finally I'm doing something about the problem. It's probably all mixed in, but the pink cloud, I get that in sobriety, and I get it in the form of like, you know, all of these challenges we talk about. On the list that I usually send to people, it's probably 30, 40 things, and I've pretty much done most of them, and sometimes I will be doing them simultaneously. And what I've found is like, I need to be careful to remind myself that I am good just as a baseline. Like, how do I want to say? So it's hard to put into words. So let me use examples and maybe it'll make more sense. So I would say past 60 days or so, I've been pretty fucking dialed in. Like exercise, I'm every single day. They say take days off. I fucking don't. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'm sure it's open for interpretation. I don't take days off. If I do, I'm doing like a 60 to 90 minute yoga from like a P90X program, which is still pretty fucking hard. So I wake up, I drink this like greens powder, I write in a journal, I meditate, I go work out, I sit in the sauna, I go take usually a cold shower, I eat breakfast, which I log. You know, I'm doing all of these things that I've heard are great for you, and they make me feel good. They give me energy. They give me all these things. But then it starts to plateau where it's just like, okay, I'm doing 15 things for my health now. I feel good, but this is a new baseline. And today is just like yesterday. So I think learning to sort of oscillate between like, okay, let's pull back a little bit and maybe try this other thing. So like for me, it's all about like switching it up and reminding myself that if I miss one, it's not the end of the fucking world.
Do you feel you're chasing novelty or routine more in that kind of a thing?
So maybe a little bit of both.
Both.
Yeah, I think with exercise and what I'm eating, I've kind of started to shape my perspective as like, I'm doing this because like for longevity and health reasons, feels better in my brain, which is a big thing. Like if I'm eating like shit for a couple of days, I start to feel like shit. Like I start to get pretty sad. My anxiety goes up. And, you know, I think I'm doing all those things because I like the challenge, but I also, I don't know. I like the challenge. I like that it makes me feel good, but the better I feel, it's like, okay, well then where's the end to it? I need to do the opposite sometimes and just be grateful for where I am. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Without a healthy gratitude practice. But then I don't want to make the gratitude practice something that like it's just another box to check, you know, just another thing I'm doing to be this self-actualized human. Another part of the reason why I started this channel, I think this is number 3. There's fucking so much bullshit out there. Like have you ever heard of the YouTube, and this is like shots fired. Have you ever heard of the YouTube channel actualize.org? It's some bald guy who is like, he talks over a black background.
Okay.
I'll pull up a picture while I'm talking about it, but
Okay.
some of his videos are very insightful. Like I've gotten quite a bit out of it. There's a couple of meditations that I still go back to this day on actualize.org, but he once made a video called How to Be Funny. And this is like
Christ.
the least fucking funny dude. Like he's kind of a twerp, kind of a douche. And it's just like, okay, well, if this fucking guy's making a video, How to Be Funny, then surely there's some other bullshit.
Yeah, what's the rest of it mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's this other guy I'm following. I forgot his channel name, but like he's the one that kind of got me into cold showers, him along with Wim Hof. I was like, okay, cold showers seem to have some benefits. And the whole NoFap thing, you heard of this NoFap?
Yeah.
Where it just gotten some benefits from that too. But then he made a video where he's like, if you don't know how to fight, you're a weak coward. I'm like, all right, dude, you're stretching now. Like, fucking get over yourself.
Clearly projecting something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Masking something.
Yeah. So this guy, do you recognize that guy in the thumbnail? He's been on YouTube for a while.
Yeah, I do actually.
Okay, yeah. That guy, Leo, is his name.
Okay.
And he's fine. But okay, so all that being said, let's get into some of these challenges. And there were a few that I wanted to touch on. The first one that I think, for me personally, would probably be the hardest is no caffeine.
Okay.
What is your current level of caffeine intake?
So I'm at the point now where coffee doesn't really do it for me. So I do like the hard energy drinks.
What's your go-to brand?
5 Hour Energy Extra Strength. If it's not extra strength, and I was taking these on the trail.
Yeah.
And if it's not extra strength, I would panic. I'm still in that state.
Yeah.
So I do either that or Bang.
Okay.
I do that in the morning, and then I usually do another one around 1, 2, 3 o'clock.
Okay. I'm gonna share God's honest truth.
Okay.
I have also been hooked on the 5 Hour Energy Extra Strengths. Yep. Oh, hell yeah. And Bang, dude, when COVID was kicking off, I swear to God, they put an extra something in
for
Bang
sure.
Energy that's not in like a Red Bull or in a Monster.
Nope.
I was up to, on average, 4 a day.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of days where I had 6 and
Bangs?
6 fucking bangs. I remember
Holy shit.
one, it was a Wednesday because I mean, it was probably June, July of 2020. So COVID was kicking off. We were super busy at work. So, you know, working extended days. I was juggling, you know, single dad parenting. So I would go to my parents. They would try to keep an eye on him. He was 18 months at the time, so super fucking hard. But then I remember, one day cracking into my 6th bang, and it like I started like kind of like shaking, like I was having like really, really bad, whatever you want to call it. I had a really bad experience with bang, so I haven't really touched the stuff since then, other than a couple of times. But it's one of those things where like I drink one and I'm reminded like, oh yeah, that's why I fucking drank 4 of these a day, because they're insane.
Yep.
But yes, so you are starting in a day or two, cold turkey, no caffeine.
I've tried to wean off of and it's the same with drugs and alcohol. It's pretty much when I quit anything.
Yeah.
If I don't cold turkey it, I will find a way very, very quickly to go back to what I was doing before.
Yeah.
And I can't even like, I've tried like, all right, switch to tea.
Mm-hmm.
That usually ends up me doing tea and also the energy drink. So I end up doing more.
Yeah.
So cold turkey is the plan.
Cool. Well, in solidarity, I like doing a challenge along with my guest.
Okay.
I'm not going full no caffeine, but
Okay.
right now my caffeine intake looks like this. So I will wake up and I'll have a cup of coffee, a pretty big one. Like if you can see on camera, that's a pretty good size. I don't know, 14 ounces, bigger than your average cup. And then I will have probably like 3/4 scoop of pre-workout, and I'll go work out. And I add, have you ever heard of beta alanine?
I've not.
So beta alanine is a supplement typically for working out, but it doesn't have caffeine in it, but it gives you like a tingly sensation that makes you want to go pump some iron.
Yeah.
So I do a scoop or 2 of that with the pre-workout. And then after my workout, usually on my way to work, I'll brew a cup of half calf. So I don't know. So that's probably 2 to 3 cups of coffee before 9 a.m. And then I usually shut it down then. My commitment to you, I'm willing to go about half of that. So
Okay.
I am going to get a pre-workout that's caffeine free and still do the beta alanine, but I'm going to see how it goes because I think it does have an impact on my anxiety. Totally, where, you know, but then it's a balance where it's like, all right, well, if I don't take enough, then I'm tired, but if I take too much, now I'm anxious, and it's.
I have a question for you as it concerns your use of caffeine.
Yeah.
Do you find that you are using caffeine to, like, I know everyone typically uses it, or they say they use it for productivity.
Uh-huh.
I get the sense that I use it for attention problems that I have with maintaining focus on like a natural level. And then also, kind of as you were alluding to with the Bang, it kind of acts almost like a high of sorts. I mean, that is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me feel good.
Yeah.
So do you do it more for the energy side, for the focus side, because there's a certain euphoria with it. Do you have like do you even pay attention to that kind of a thing?
Oh, I do. So with the Bang and energy drinks, I do it because there's a certain euphoria to it.
Yeah.
I think it's going to make me feel different, and usually it does if I drink enough of it. I think with coffee, it's just become so rooted in my daily routine, but also the level of caffeine has become so rooted in just my perceived ability to function and accomplish tasks at work. If I'm objectively looking at it, I don't think it helps my productivity.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason in my brain, I drink it. I'm like, oh, this is going to help me get going. But it really doesn't. What about you? What's your purpose for drinking caffeine?
I think it's mostly for the sense that it makes me more creative.
Okay.
I don't think that that's even true.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like I had this problem when I was addicted to Adderall that like I was making better stuff, which wasn't true. I just felt better about what I was making, whether or not it was objectively better. Often it was not in that case. I think it's mostly the perception that I'm wanting to do what I'm doing and that I'm doing it well more than it is any sort of productivity or actual benefit to the performance of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Which is, well, the reason I asked you why you feel you did you used caffeine was because I was wondering if you had found, you know how like when we quit drinking or taking drugs, you supplement your life with something else. You don't just like stop that. That's what the 12 steps for, spirituality and all that stuff. When it comes to caffeine, do you think, is there anything you've noticed that kind of helps you fill that void that you were looking for with taking, or even if you're cutting back? Like, is there a specific, because I've always struggled with this when I quit caffeine. I do my program and everything, but there's still this part of me, because society doesn't need me to drink and take drugs. Definitely not.
Yeah.
But with caffeine, and if you're working or making something or whatever you're focusing on, society still needs you to perform a certain way. And maybe you yourself need to perform a certain way just for your own happiness or sense of productivity. What do you do to supplement that when you're like going through a change or when you're cutting back yourself? Or do you just kind of keep things the same as they were?
Well, if I were to give up caffeine entirely, I would probably fill it with something.
Yeah.
Probably just drink a glass of water every time I want a cup of coffee. It would be a challenge, though. I always feel like coffee is going to give me an extra gear when I need to get going. It would probably take some sort of substantial pain that caffeine caused for me to totally give it up.
Yeah.
I think like that's exactly what happened with the Bang Energies. Like that's why I was like, no, fuck, this is ridiculous. This is insane. I need to cut it off entirely. But I would so it would be tempting. This kind of transitions right into the second thing you're going to give up, which is equally hard.
Oh, yeah.
I think I had a harder time quitting smoking than I did with quitting drinking, smoking weed, and taking Adderall. I could sit here, ironically, I could sit here and talk to you about Adderall for probably 8 straight hours as if we were on Adderall, but with the nicotine, here's what I always felt like. If you were to ask me if I truly believe in my heart, if I've taken my last drink of alcohol, I would say yeah, as long as I continue to do the daily reprieve 12-step program that I do, I think there's a good shot that I've taken my last drink of alcohol. But if you were to ask me, yes, knock on wood, of course. But if you were to ask me that same question about have I smoked my last cigarette, I would tell you I don't fucking know. Yeah. I hope. But with nicotine, so I'll give you the formula that has kind of sort of worked for me. But nicotine was so hard because once I gave up smoking cigarettes, it was like, okay, I will use these nicotine lozenges or nicotine gum or vape to dial down, and I'll just dial this down. Cause like with lozenges, you can go from like 4 to 2 to whatever. With gum, you can do the steps. With vape, you can decrease the level of nicotine you're getting. And that was always my plan.
You stacked.
But dude, I would do the opposite. I would take like 1-2 milligram lozenge in the morning, forget that it's there, let it dissolve, and then maybe in the afternoon take another one. By the end of it, I got 4 in my mouth at the same fucking time while I'm hitting a vape, while I'm, smoking hookah, whatever. And I just can never do it. So the only thing that's been able to keep me off all of that stuff, and I'm not saying it's any better, I haven't smoked a cigarette in 3.5 years. Thank you. But I would say nearly every day I still put on a nicotine patch.
Yeah.
And the nicotine patch, for whatever reason, it's something that I never had a desire to like throw like 4 nicotine patches on myself at once. It's just something I can truly set it and forget it. And it curbs my I want to say addiction. It curbs my desire to smoke. And there's been a couple other things I've done to help. I read the Alan Carr's Easy Way to Stop Smoking. Have you ever heard of that book?
I've heard of that one, yeah.
So I got
You're supposed to smoke while you're reading it, right?
Yeah. You're supposed to smoke while you're reading it. And then there was some random YouTube meditation, or it was like a hypnosis video that I listened to. It's like a half hour. I'll see if I can find it. I can send it to you. It actually fucking helped like a lot. I never thought I would say that. But all that being said, I see it right there, but I'm still going to ask you, for anyone who's just using this as audio, what is your form of nicotine currently?
Oh, it's the pouches, Zyn pouches in particular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have one, and I have one in literally all the time.
Yeah.
Literally all the time.
Yeah. First thing when you wake up, pop it in.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you stack? Do you ever put 2 in there? Yep.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Dude, we're like, this is so funny. We're just like talking to the same brain. I've done the same. So in a day or two, we'll confirm that. By the end of this podcast, you're going just cold turkey. No
Just
more.
rip the Band-Aid off, yeah.
Just rip it off.
Yep.
Okay.
I will say too, I quit nicotine and caffeine for 2 years.
Okay.
And I know that for me, what causes me to go back, I did cold turkey last time as well. Something will happen in my life that makes me feel like the last time I had a mentor of mine passed away suddenly. It was unexpected.
Damn.
And the thought came into my head that I wanted to feel, I couldn't describe it any other way than I wanted to feel human, if that makes sense. So something about me felt almost like reptilian. Like I would be in a room full of people thinking about this loss, and maybe it's just like not feeling comfortable in your skin, that whole thing.
Yeah.
And so I convinced myself that I just needed for a second to remember what it was like to be human.
Yeah.
And I took, if you've ever quit nicotine before, or you've never used nicotine, and you go to the pouches and you go to 6 off of nothing, you're gonna feel like shit. It's not gonna feel good. So at that point, they were still doing the 3s and 6s for the Zyn, the milligrams.
Okay.
And I was like, give me the 6, baby.
Yeah.
And I felt like my head was pounding.
Oh man.
And I just kept taking more and more. And I convinced myself that I have to make it through this is stupid. Make it through this period to get the experience that I wanted. And then once I got that experience, okay, I'm good. I feel whole. I feel grounded. And I'm going to back off. But at that point, I was already in. So I think one thing that I'll have to look out for, and I think probably a lot of us in the program who attempt to quit these not quite as blatantly, I mean, it'll still kill you, but it's different than alcohol and drugs, is that we have to be aware of, I know I do, I have to be aware of how connected am I being with other humans, which kind of also plays into I know that's one of the challenges you wanted to talk about. For me, when I isolate, it's so weird. Like isolation is weird because, and I don't know if you have this experience with isolation. As much as I hate it, I love it. Of course, that's the thing. That's the thing with being an addict. I wouldn't say love it. It's more of like it's almost like sex.
Yeah.
It's almost like I have to get my isolation in, just as a human. It's part of my DNA, which is probably bullshit. It's probably just the wrong way to frame it. We're probably looking more for solitude, which comes in meditation and through meditation and just different modes of spirituality and just program shit. I know that that's one thing I'll have to look out for, and I think that's probably true of every single addict who's ever lived.
Yeah. You talked about isolation.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get into that.
Yeah.
Because that's the third thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I probably shouldn't share this, but I have heard nicotine itself is actually not harmful. I've heard it's like a new.
Oh, I don't need to hear that.
I know.
Chris.
I know. Me too. All right. Well, there's no going back down. I want to be objective here.
Okay.
But nicotine is supposed to be like a nootropic that is not terrible for you, but the form we get it in is typically, by smoking a cigarette or the vapes that had zero research on them that everyone's like, oh, it's gotta be healthier than cigarettes.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, popcorn lung and all that stuff. But I have heard, and I haven't heard any counter arguments, that nicotine itself isn't bad for you. But isolation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have the same sense about isolation. I work a job that allows me to work from home a couple of days a week usually. And then when I do go in, I have the same kind of pep talk with myself quite often. And that's, I could go sit with the team or at least sit around other people and be kind of forced to socialize or get involved into some projects, or I have this other option, and that's to go find a place in the building where nobody else is sitting, and I can tell myself, or I could tell anybody else if questioned, like, oh yeah, I'm working on a project, and I'll have my headphones in. Like, of course, I'm not just going to sit there with my own thoughts, but isolation, I would say, is becoming a problem in my life because I choose the easier, softer way, or what I think is going to be the easier, softer way, by avoiding everybody. But usually what ends up happening is by the end of the day, I feel like shit that I chose that option.
Yeah.
But at the beginning of the day, I know that I'm going to choose that option because it's, when you run the risk of socializing with other people, you run the risk of someone's going to annoy me. Someone's going to say something, or someone's going to pull me into a task that I don't want to do. If I am away from everybody, then I just got my own shit. I'll work on stuff for this channel or my other YouTube channel, or I'll work on something else or something. But I agree. Isolation, especially for an addict, is not a good place to be. And I want to throw this out there to you because the third one is socializing, like calling somebody every single day.
Yeah.
Well, whoever that might be, I ask, throw me into that rotation.
Gotcha.
And I will pick up as long as I'm not currently busy. But if I don't pick up, I will call you back because I absolutely have the time in my day to connect more with people. And there's a difference too about connecting with others where we're talking on the level we're talking at now or at a table versus the normal surface level kind of BS. That sure, there's a place for that, but I feel like too long into a conversation about the weather, I feel like I want to fucking blow my brains out.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a language of the head and a language of the heart. We talk about the language of the heart in the program, and sure, there's a time and place for both, but the more I can be speaking the language of the heart about what's really going on, I'm so much better. I get out of myself, it's great. So do you have an idea of like the people you're going to reach out to in contact while you're?
Well, it'll be you and my sponsor.
Cool.
Might do another. I think it should be program. I find that most, even with a couple years of sobriety now, I find that trying to talk to people who aren't in the program about this kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
or really when I make a big life change, I still really struggle with that just because there's a lot of stuff that I don't have to necessarily say up front or state up front for if you being in the program. You just kind of you're already on the same page, like the same wavelength as far as like you already know what the obstacles are going to be because you share a lot of we share traits.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think the program is probably best for me. Although you know what, I'll probably throw in there. I should throw in there is my buddy Greg, my paralyzed friend.
Oh, cool.
One of the things that I'm sort of exploring with this project with the walk across the country is he himself has a condition in which he is powerless over, and his is of the body. I guess the addiction part is of the body for me, but we kind of share a similarity in that we're both powerless over a condition, and that's why I'm walking because I can use my legs, and he has a mental aspect that I don't have. So we kind of complement each other in that way. So he'll probably be another person I reach. I talk to him frequently, but not every day. So it'd be him every day as well.
Yeah. Isolation, man, it's fucking killer. I'm sure a lot of people, especially with the COVID, we're 4 years removed from COVID now, but I feel like we're still feeling the effects as a society of all the isolation and lockdowns. And, there's the argument working from home, working remote. It's great. I love it, but I will again objectively say it's got an impact on my well-being mentally. Emily, she's a personal trainer. She goes in, she's face to face with people all day, 5 days a week, and high energy. She comes home just usually most of the time. I mean, she has her bad day every now and then where like you don't want to socialize, but she always comes in kind of floating, really good mood. And I've been here and I'm just like, I haven't really accomplished anything. I haven't said a word. The only person I've interacted with is my kid. And like, that's great, but there's something to be said for, being face to face and going to work. I hate to say it is because I love working from home so much, but all that being said, I guess this is a good segue to talk about number 4. Before we talk about the 4th challenge that I wanted to touch on, I had mentioned the different reasons why I started this channel. And we've talked about the 12 steps a lot. So, I'll spare the listener too much more 12-step stuff, but there's something to be said for you got to give it away to keep it.
Yeah.
And I love the analogy of like the Dead Sea and how there's just like a river that flows into it and then goes nowhere. And it's all like brown and everything's dead. Whereas you picture a lake with a river flowing in and out. And I think that out is very important because we work these steps, these principles in our lives. And if I didn't have a place to go to and still talk about it, like meetings and with my sponsor, I wouldn't have the same results. So by talking about all this stuff as it relates to health, I'm taking in a lot of stuff. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I read a lot. I check out YouTube videos. I'm a sucker for this shit. But I feel like now I finally get a chance to like talk about it with other people and like share some of what I know and take in some of what I don't know. And that's just another reason why I started the channel. But this is a good one because I'm kind of on this boat. I'm on this train myself, and that's the no social media. So right now, which social media apps are you using on a regular basis?
Instagram a lot. Instagram is very problematic for me in the way that I don't really use TikTok.
Okay.
But Instagram Reels essentially function as the same thing.
Yeah. I hear there's some crazy shit on Instagram Reels now. Is there like death? Like, does it show people dying on there, or is that just certain people's feeds?
There's some. Yeah, you can get down the rabbit hole. That's
crazy.
Yeah, there's some stuff in there. It's not good. And I find too that with Instagram, there is just a tendency to, when it comes to like women and stuff, it really shapes my perception in a hyper negative way.
Yeah.
objectifying way, and I am like, it's weird because it plays into, it's like almost a impulsive thing for me. And I think that is one of the reasons I, in addition to just mindlessly scrolling through whatever. And the other thing too is on all social medias, but maybe Instagram and YouTube as well, but especially Instagram.
Yeah.
I find, and this is a common theme with social media use. I think I'm sure you can relate. I never actually feel good while I'm doing it. At best, I feel mildly discontent. You know, and it's sort of like I almost seek that slight level of frustration, and I don't even know why I do that. I guess it's just impulsive and not really intentional use of the platform.
Yeah. Well, I would push back a little bit there. I think, yes, we have an addictive personality, but they curate that shit
they do.
to be as addictive as fucking possible. Like, they have engineers and all these people studying how long you look at shit, how, you know, what's the best for this type of person, what's the best for that type of person. They use the same technology that they put in slot machines to keep you on the apps as long as possible. So I think it's worse probably for someone with an addictive personality, but I think everybody suffers from the same shit. That's like, this never makes me feel any better. Like, I never am looking at the app, or aside from when I get the little red fucking notification that somebody liked some of my shit, and that, I mean, that's a different rabbit hole, but like, man, I just the way they curate it is so frustrating to me. And I had to, because part of this channel, we used to be on all of them. We used to be on X, on Instagram, on TikTok, and I did good for a little bit where we would post stuff. I would do the thing that I think Joe Rogan called it post and ghost. I like that because it's like, put something on there and fucking don't look at it. But slowly but surely, I find myself getting more seduced by it and more seduced by it. When I'm not on it, I'm thinking about it. So I had to make the like intentional decision, like, while it may have been good for our channel at a certain time, it's worse for my mental state than it is good for the channel. So I just had to get rid of everything, like, entirely. And I'm on YouTube now. And YouTube, yes, there is still an aspect of it, but I feel like it's a little different with YouTube, but I'm not willing to give up YouTube because I feel like the amount of good shit that I get from it kind of balances it out. Like, sure, I can get caught up in the mindlessness of it and, you know, always checking the notifications, but I feel like the long form content I get from it, yeah, is a good balance.
You're in a very unique position with this podcast because you're talking about health and wellness and spirituality to a degree, and just holistic health, I guess. And you're having to use things that tend to not be very healthy. You have no choice but to use them to get your message out there. So that's, you know, I give you a lot of credit because that a lot of work. And I have a social media page for my walk too.
Right.
And I experienced a lot of the similar things that you were talking about, where I would be good for a while and then I would like kind of like, it would just end up spiraling into scrolling and looking and just constantly ruminating on how I wrote what I wrote, or not even necessarily anything malevolent or sinister, but just obsessing about the portrayal of whatever it is that I'm talking about. Even for like a fundraiser, you know, I'm like, well, this kind of gets out of the heart of what I'm not embodying the heart of of the message I'm trying to share about Greg. And, you know, and you're kind of, you know, with exploring health and wellness and all that stuff, you're in a very unique position to kind of like grapple with that stuff. And hopefully maybe some stuff you do here will contribute to, it's kind of like in the past, like how anyone could buy cigarettes, you know, I think there is going to come a point in time where we have to tailor our entertainment and social media in a similar way, where we'd at least be more careful and cognizant of how we let people, I mean, you can't stop people from using it, and I don't think you should, but like clearly there's a crisis. Which is why I'm doing that challenge, because
Yeah.
clearly, and we're all in bed. That's the scary thing. And I noticed that too when I was walking. Like I said, I didn't have a lot of cell signal, so I got weaned off of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And if you hooked up a lie detector to my brain, you sat me down and you asked me, are you going to go back to using your phone the way that you did before this walk? I would have said no, and then that lie detector would have told you I was telling the truth.
Yeah.
And within days, and I mean days,
Yeah.
I was back to using my phone the exact same way I was prior to being weaned off of it.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you have an iPhone?
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing your average screen time?
Oh, Christ.
You get the notification every what, Sunday? Because I do too.
I think so.
I will tell you that if I am under 5 hours daily, that's a pretty good week for me.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it's taking into account, though. I've never looked into this. And I know sometimes I'll have a podcast going where, like, my phone, like, the screen's off, but it's being used for something I'm listening to in my Bluetooth headphones. So I don't know if it's counting that
Yeah.
or if it's just literally time I'm looking at the screen. But I would say 5 hours. Like, if I'm above it, I'm kind of like, oh, that was a bad week. If I'm below it, I'm like, fuck yeah, only 5 hours? 5 hours? Could I ask?
Yeah, it's really high. I want to preface that the last week I've been like having some pretty bad OCD stuff.
Cool.
So I've been like staying up late.
Okay.
So mine is very high.
Yeah.
9 hours and 6 minutes a day.
Okay, definitely been there. Definitely I have been there. So that's a good tangible thing. So 9+ hours. We'll come back in the 40 days, and screen time is a good measure because I would imagine a good chunk of that time is on social media.
YouTube
YouTube,
and Instagram.
Yeah.
Instagram. And
So-
chess. Chess is like this like weird. I'm not even good at chess.
dude.
I just play it over and over.
I'm gonna tell you, I got the same way with solitaire and
Yeah.
Sudoku.
Yeah.
It's like I think it was the app that's again built to be addictive. There's like little ting ling 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 like when you do a good thing, and every so often they'll throw up an ad, so I know they're making money. But yeah, if you were to just give me a deck of cards, like I'll play one game of solitaire, I'll be bored as fuck. Like I'm not gonna finish. But on this app, for whatever reason, it was like gotta play again. It's like
Slot machines.
yeah, dude, it's the same technology. So what are the actual social medias that you're gonna rid yourself of?
I think all of them.
All of them?
Every Facebook. I think the only thing that and I was thinking about this too because I do need to update my website for the walk and the fundraiser.
Yeah.
I might have to hop on those pages
Okay.
to post, but I'll stay off of all my like personal the because those pages I don't follow
Yeah.
anybody. It's just basically what did you call it, the post and ghost.
Post and ghost.
They're basically intentional. I did the same thing. I made them for that format.
Yeah.
So if I have to do that, it'll just be for whatever I write on my blog, basically.
Yeah.
So, but all of them, and I think I'm flirting with the idea of maybe YouTube as well. But I think YouTube, like you were kind of alluding to, you can actually have some productive things that you find on YouTube that are actually beneficial to your life. So that one I'm not sure of yet.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about YouTube is that tends to be the gateway into my 3 a.m., 4 a.m. nights.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure at this moment if I should be doing that or not. Probably not. If I'm
Yeah.
at 9 goddamn hours a day on my phone.
Well, I anticipate maybe a shaky first couple of days, but I think your sleep was another thing that was on your list. I think once you sort of get back to a good baseline after a few days, your sleep is going to be much better. Which sleep, like if you ever, Dr. Andrew Huberman?
I do. Yeah.
Dude, it's so funny. This is how I know I'm a moron. I will listen to one of his podcasts or something, and it's such a good resource. He is a very sharp guy and talks about neurology, just like everything health related. I will listen to it. I'll be like, yeah, oh, that makes sense. Fuck yeah. And then I'll go to explain it to somebody, and I'll be like, social media bad. Don't do. It's not good for brain. And it's just like, oh shit. Like I don't know a thing about what he said. He'll talk about like you got to get, I like he he kind of annoys me though at the same time because I will feel like I'm doing the right thing. Cold showers. I'll watch like a Wim Hof video and I'll be like, cold is good for you. Get into the cold. So I'll be like, all right, I'm going to take a cold shower. And then I'll get out. I'll be like, fuck yeah, that felt great. And then I'll watch a Huberman video and he'll be like, cold showers are good, but you specifically want it at 37 degrees Fahrenheit, between 37 degrees Fahrenheit and 41 degrees Fahrenheit. And you want to get in, you want to induce shiver. Then you want to get out of the cold shower, dry off for 30 seconds, get back in the cold shower, and he'll just add so much specifics to this thing. I thought I was doing this good. I'll just be like, fuck you, man. Like, come on. I thought I'm doing something good. And just like, eat vegetables. And he'll be like, well, you want to eat vegetables that are rich in iron because the phthalates, and just like, what the fuck, man? Just let me be doing a good thing. Anyway,
I love how he always adds like for the aficionados. Do you hear what he's? Yes. And then he goes even into more detail. Like, okay, I'm completely lost now.
Yeah, he'll break it down to like a cellular level, and I can't even say the word cellular. Okay, we've been rocking for a good 90, going on 90 minutes now. I always end the same way, and that's asking you: was there anything that we didn't touch on that you were hoping to get to or hoping to talk about?
No, I think we covered just about everything, and I just want to say I feel like thanks for letting me do this because
thank you for coming on.
With you being in the program and sort of kind of this, I think we texted about it briefly this morning. I'm just very grateful to have something this is gonna hold me accountable. It's part of the reason like there are cameras now. I have to do it. And the beauty of if I want to add anything, it's just like the beauty of the 12-step program is that the healing process is never linear, and even when you stop using, there are ups and downs in life. And the great thing about the program is that we know that, and we have a place to go to, and hopefully maybe this and I know you'll have more guests who are 12-steppers on here. And, I hope it reaches people who are going through, whether they're getting sober or they've been sober for a bit, just to know that, that you can, it's never too late to make a change, or you can, like I said, I quit nicotine and caffeine for 2 years and here I am again. And that doesn't mean the perfectionist in me is like, well, you failed. So now that's who you are now. You're the nicotine, caffeine, phone scrolling guy. Again, that voice is still there, but being able to come here and talk with you and know that you share a lot of the same things, I'm already feeling more at baseline, like, okay, I'm going to be able to do this.
Hell yeah, so. I know you are. And the perfectionism thing, I was literally, that's so funny. It's synchronicity in play. I was literally reading about perfectionism the past day or two. I'm reading this book called The Artist Way. Oh yeah. It's by a lady who's actually in the program, and it's like it's a 12-week program, and it's all about unblocking creativity, and it's got some of the same principles as the 12-step, but it stands on its own. And yeah, this chapter is talking about perfectionism, particularly when it comes to creating any kind of, I feel like the word art, I don't like using the word art because it just, for me, for whatever reason, it has like a pretentious connotation. But anything you're creating or building or painting, whatever, the tendency to be a perfectionist for me is in full force. Always. I'm always like, oh my God, am I doing these podcasts? Am I going to say the right thing? Am I going to ask the right questions? Am I going to guide the conversation along in the right way? What if there's a long pause? Will I have to edit it out? What if I forget to edit it out? And it's just like, will I be using the right camera angle? And it's just whatever needed to be said today between you and I, it was said. And I have to remember that. I have to remember not to try to like micromanage when creating. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I think, and I would definitely describe this as art, what you're doing here. But I think art is, and maybe I'm sure I'm sure she touches on all this stuff in the book. It's just stuff that this is something I've thought of before when it comes to, because I like to write. And one of the things that kind of is weird about creative stuff is half of what, or a part, at least part of what makes you adept in that space is kind of like what also causes problems in your life. It's the just being so particular and sort of like, maybe it's not micromanaging. Maybe it's just that maybe there's a softer way to phrase that concept. But I have to imagine that is a shared experience for people who are creative in the, maybe not even just in the 12-step space, but in general.
Yeah.
You know, it's a kind of a tricky line to walk, I think.
Yeah, because you want to put out good shit,
Yeah.
but the same voice that helps you put out good shit, for me, can also be the voice that says, no, don't do that. That's a bad idea too often. And it's kind of like a balance. There's actually an exercise in this book that while you're doing the program, every single morning, you have to write 3 full pages of just stream of conscious thinking. And the idea is, they call it in the book the censor, you know, whatever you want to call it in your own mind, the critic, you know, the micromanager, whatever, the part of your brain that says, that's not that good of an idea, or that idea's already been done, or what do you have to offer to, you know, a listener, like whatever that voice is. Writing 3 pages of unconscious or like stream of conscious thinking, it actually helps quiet that part of the brain down pretty well, because you just fucking steamroll over it, kind of. It's like
You're not judging it.
right.
Yeah.
Right. You just kind of integrate it. And I don't know why I just got the visual of Goggins. This is not supposed to be a Goggins episode, but he's talking about like how he shaped himself. He's like, I think of myself as a sword that was stuck in the fire and beaten with a fucking hammer over and over and over again. I'm like, I can be my worst critic sometimes.
Yeah.
I think he was talking about it totally differently. I don't know why I got that visual, but you know, whatever. But all right, man. Well, thanks for coming on. I am really, really excited to have you back here in 40-ish days and see what kind of results we got, man.
Me too, man.
Yeah.
Thanks again for being a resource for me. I'll be reaching out every day.
Hell yeah, brother.